We're back. Again, I'm extremely sorry for the delay, but now we are ready to finally start the last section of today, which will deal more with the aspect of protection and valorization of cultural landscapes and cultural heritage in its broader sense. So the first speaker of this afternoon is Dario Scarpati, archaeologist from the Ecomuseo delle Madonie, and I'm extremely glad to leave the floor to him. So let's switch the place. You can sit here, and I'll share the screen. Share. All right. Here we go. Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you, Nicolo, and good afternoon to all of you. Before I begin, I must tell you two things. First, I apologize for my bad English. Next, not all the pictures you will see are mine. I've taken most of them from catalogs, books, and websites that talk about our wonderful area. The title of my speech is A Practical Experience to Live the Three Pillars: Heritage, Territory, and Community, the Ecomuseum of the Madonie. The Madonie Ecomuseum was recognized as being a regional interest in 2020. So we have been operating as an ecomuseum for a very short time. But the history of the area's museum network began many years ago. The historical territory of the Ecomuseum of Madonie is located in the eastern area of the province of Palermo, Sicily, and is characterized by a strong cultural, geographical, and landscape homogeneity. We can observe two types of landscape. The first is mountainous and forested, dominated by extensive massifs and rugged hills. We usually know Sicily for the sea. However, most of the island is mountains. The highest peak is the Etna, the volcano, more than 3,000 meters above the sea level, but it's outside our territory. In the Madonie Massif, the highest peaks are Pizzo Carbonare and Pizzo Antenna, very close to the 2,000 meters. The second landscape, hilly and valley-like, is shaped by watercourses flowing down to the Tyrrhenian Sea and the southern hinterland. Different geomorphological situations and historical events have produced a differentiated environment, inhabited since prehistoric times, complementary in the construction of the anthropic landscape that gives the entire area an unified cultural character. Sorry. Now,
all right.
Come on, okay. This is the Grotta of the Vecchiuzzo. The object found there are of the prehistoric time, more or less the end of the Neolithic. Important traces of the classical period, especially Roman Imperial, characterize the landscape. This is our archaeological excavation. On the margin of the massif, settlements are arranged in a row on the tops of the main spurs. These are villages of medieval origin linked to the existence of castles of which substantial traces remain and which are characterized by their well-preserved medieval layout and valuable works of art. The town stands perched on the slopes in a rugged and arid landscape, and signs of Arab and Norman fortification strategically placed to defend the Val are present. The Ecomuseum was born from the synergy of the 21 municipalities of the Madonie inner area, that shared a new strategic vision of the model of tourism destination management community, DMC, which requires the proactive participation of people and local communities, including through the use of landscape maps, a presentation of a narrative that recovers the collective memory of the heritage, intangible and intangible assets, and allows the traveler to develop the experience of living in the place of the destination. The Ecomuseum has also developed living participatory workshop methodologies to experience the invisible beauty of the territory that cannot be discovered without the knowledge of the person and relationship with those who inhabit it. Among the relevant actors in the territory partnership who have expressed concrete interest in supporting this area strategic resilient Madoni Laboratory of the Future are in particular Geopark of the Madonie, member of the European Network of Geopark recognized by UNESCO, this is the area, in green, there is the area of the Geopark. And the Musea Network, which has systematized the Museum of the Municipalities of the Madonie Mountains through a project promoted by SOSVIMA called the Madonie Cultural District, the Landscape of Myth and Narrative, Itineraries of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in the Mediterranean. SOSVIMA is the acronym for Madonie Development Company. In 2016, the Musea Network project was judged by ICOM Italy to be one of the 10 most significant among those that participated in the survey on the relationship between museum and cultural landscapes. I will now try to tell what task the Ecomuseum intends to develop, starting for the 3 pillars that constitute it. The territory, because the Ecomuseum is not a building or a place, but extends systematically to the whole space, representing and making more visible its characteristics, landscape, history, memory, identity. The population, because this is the true subject object of the museum, because only its participation legitimizes its existence, because it is the succession of communities and population in space and time that has created the landscape and heritage of the area. Heritage understood not as a part, such as art or science, archaeology or ethnography, but as everything that for a community is worthy of being considered as such, or even everything that fathers have left us, so that it can be passed on increased to our children. People's participation, together with the idea of the territory as a whole, is the basis of our Ecomuseum, which we can call a community museum, as it is based on certain principles. For example, the entire community constitutes a living museum, whose audience is permanently inside.
It's the next one.
The Ecomuseums, as the inhabitant of the community, as its main interlocutors, visitors enjoy the restitution and interpretation of the collective memory, but the inhabitants remain its custodian. We work because there is the citizen, not for any other reason. On the basis, the people of the Madonie municipalities have taken on the task of reinterpreting territorial, cultural, and environmental values as common good to ensure environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable development for the entire territory. Particular attention was paid to the role of museum for protection, study, and documentation, but especially for education and mediation on the landscape, and for the real involvement of the public understood as active citizenship. The Madonita School Network also shares the challenge and participates in social innovation processes and new partnership network aimed at strengthening the resilience and development capacity of the territorial system as a green community. In this direction, it expressly planned to experiment with innovative methodology capable of combining the acquisition of skill and abilities through laboratories activities of social and practical action education, with non-formal sensory and experiential education activities, including emotional approach and storytelling. In addition, the creation of platform was integrated digital education and audiovisual and multimedia workshops supports the development of new languages in narrative techniques for telling the territory. The reworking of multimedia materials created during the pilot project contributes to the production of community maps and the digital application related to service for the use of territorial research in the context of the destination management community. Questa è quella. The Ecomuseum of Madonie has activated 8 interpretation centers identified by the Union of the Municipalities to create the first community maps. These antennas were chosen from museums of different types and degree of advancement of relationship with the population, so as to cover the full spectrum of needs. As a result of all these activities, the relevant community assets of the Madonie territory were identified and articulated into the following 5 cultural landscapes. Biodiversity landscape, and in particular, the uniqueness of the Madonie's geological heritage, which motivated the establishment of the Madonie Geopark and the participation in the European network of geopark recognized by UNESCO. The extraordinary uniqueness of the heritage of plant species, 170 endemics, among which stand out the presence of monumental trees, such as the specimen of Abies nebrodensis that you can see in the photo. The uniqueness of the ash trees, Fraxinus ulmus and Fraxinus angustifolia, for manna production in the area of Pollin and Castelbuono, the ancient cultivation of which is evidenced since the period of Arab civilization in Sicily. Manna is more or less a sugar, a vegetable sugar used for the sweet. The extraordinary spread of wild vegetables, medicinal and then endemic herbs that over the century have fed and cured human and animals. Landscape of water and mills, and in particular, the unique relationship between geological formation, waterways, and human activities over the millennia. From Roman bath, we are in Contrada Muratore, Castellana Sicola, to the water mills of the Middle Ages for grinding grain and processing wool. We are in Scillato, but there are many in Polizzi Generosa, Castellana Sicola, and in another place. From the water through of the countryside to the washhouse and fountain of urban center, to the production of electricity in the 19th, the Cataratti Hydroelectrica Power Plant in Petralia Sottana. Landscape of agro-pastoral civilization, and in particular, the stone construction of sheepfold, Mannari, and milk and cheese processing shelter, Marcati, along the transhumance routes. The traditional crops, ancient grain, legumes, olive, and fruit trees. The auspicious festival for the grain harvest and new marriage, such as il Ballo della Cordella, the Cordella dance in Petralia Sottana. Landscape of villages and castles, and in particular, the centers of medieval layout that are part of the national network of the Borghi più belli d'Italia, Italy's most beautiful villages, Gangi, Geracisicolo, e Petralia Soprana. The castle that testified the long history of the county of Ventimiglia and Sicilian feudalism since the Norman age and the formation of the Kingdom of Sicily. The culture of the Teatro dei Pupi, puppet theater. We are here in Caltavuturo, also recognized by UNESCO. Landscape of the sacred. The sanctuaries that dominated the extraordinary landscape of the Madonia Mountains and bear witness to the centuries-old path of faith of local communities and religious pilgrimage. From the sanctuary of the Madonna dell'Alto more than 1,800 meters above the sea level, to the sanctuary of Santa Maria dell'Olio in Blufi. This is the Santuario of Madonna dell'Alto, and the next one, you can see the flower during the spring. It's an incredible show to see. All the area is red. It's incredible to see. The colorful geometric patterned ceramics of church and monastery steeples that contribute to the identify of the Madonie landscapes. The processional rites and festival, for example, the long celebration in honor of Sant'Anna in Castelbuono, which take place in the third week of July with novenas and processions. The 8th Interpretation Center of the Madonie Eco Museum carry out storytelling activities and present the many itineraries that cross the places and cultural landscape of the area, including the ecotouristic trails, equipped with signage which allow visitors to appreciate its exceptional geological landscape and natural features. For example, the next, sulle orme di Tanino, in Tanino Footstep, dedicated to the archaeologist Gaetano Messineo, who died more than years ago, is the itinerary we inaugurated last year, financed by the mixed public-private grant. All museum exhibits, thanks to the effort of the Museo Network, are implementing accessibility criteria as required by standard for accreditation to quality system and as confirmed by collaboration with entities such as ICOM, which is producing the architectural barrier abutment plan for the entire museum network. Some museums in the network are organizing 5 senses exhibitions, which can enhance the relationship between the public and the exhibit through the use of touch or hearing. Considering the food production in the area, we are also getting up for taste. The 2 images you see refer to a joint workshop of the Ganji Museum with a local rehabilitation center during the 2019 International Museum Day. These are young people with disabilities working as guides together with elementary school children who taught their audience how it's necessary to see objects with all 5 senses, especially by touching archaeological artifacts. Thanks are due to the Palermo Superintendency of Cultural Heritage, who allows us to do these experiments. The program of activities for the coming years includes an even broader involvement of the Madonite community, especially by increasingly involving the Madonite school network. It's important to implement knowledge of the territory, its characteristic, research and potential, problem and weakness, and the sharing of the methods for the production of community map and the construction of digital database accessible as open data. Finally, we feel a strong need to share an experiment with methods and knowledge and transmission to a specific area of ecomuseum heritage, that of knowledge and craft skill of living people who know how to care for proper landscape development. A goal, this one, which in turn encapsulates 3 specific aims: the strengthening of the ecomuseum animation and dissemination activities in the area to collect ethnographic and technical information with the aim of progressively discussing and disseminating the result and making proposal for the continuation of the overall project, establish exchange contact and joint work with other ecomuseums for sharing methodologies and improving verification and achievements, link a structured way to the activities of the Madonie Eco Museum to the initiative involving the Madonie community, and together with tourists to be considered as a temporary guest of the territory. To conclude this talk, I leave you with some picture that can make you understand why I, who I am not Madonite, left Rome to spend as much time as possible in this place. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in Sicily. this is an invite for you, of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Dario. I think it's a really interesting experiment. It's, well, more than an experiment, an experience.
We are trying to do an experience.
Yeah. So other questions also from the audience here or in the chat? Or if anybody has a question? Well, I have one. The approach that you present here is a bottom up. Actually, you stressed quite a few times. Anyhow, do you have any support from the above level, let's say so, or it's entirely like an activity that is?
We have more support from the community and the political community.
Okay.
The Union of the Community and the Commons, many major work with us. Mm-hmm. But you have to think that the town is very small, and so the major is a friend, and so it's very easy to have an approach more easy with the politics in that area. But they work very hard to develop the entire community, and so we are part of this community.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to know, have you had more people visiting the area since the initiative?
Yes, it's an inner area, and so suffer the population, of course. But in the last years, probably thanks to the COVID, for example, the tourism it's very difficult to go out of the island, and so many persons from Palermo and from the Sicily discovered again their inner area. I told for the not Sicilian, but for the Sicilian too, the Sicily is sea, but it's not true. When they discover the mountains, it's very difficult to leave them, and so the tourism and the person who came to meet us increasing every month, luckily. It's the basis for our work because we want to make something to be resilient in Madonia.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's really an interesting topic you brought forward. So Federica, who's professor at the University of Ferrara. So please share your screen, and again, thank you for participating.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I'm not physically there, but it was not possible. So just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we see it perfectly. Yes.
Maybe now it's full.
Yes.
And you can hear me. Okay. Thank you so much once again. Well, this presentation is about cultural heritage at risk, digital strategies for management, safeguard and enhancement of cultural sites and landscape. I will share some topical issues in this overview. Related to, heritage in emergency condition by sharing some methodological and operational example of documentation, analysis, enhancement and conservation of cultural heritage sites and landscape, and just sharing some insights from some European experience, European projects. The most recent one is the 4CH project. I will present shortly this activity, and just to conclude with some example of interventions and strategies within the After the Damages International Academy I will present later. So just let me start with some preliminary insights related to the topic of heritage at risk by starting from this statement from a document by the European Commission, a document related to safeguarding cultural heritage from natural and man-made disaster, We know very well, unfortunately, that disaster and catastrophes are very, very frequent, eating and affecting cultural heritage. So we have to manage the consequences of these natural hazards and anthropogenic effect of these extreme climate change events. And we know very well that cultural heritage in a broad sense is it's at risk of loss. But I would like to highlight also the social and cultural dimension in addition to the material, to the tangible dimension of the risk of loss of cultural heritage. So the document by the European Commission includes, of course, several strategies, several insights, also considering as a damages to heritage, the urban expansion and other inappropriate practices that are affecting our landscapes and cities. So starting from this consideration, this broad consideration about heritage at risk, well, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction 2015-2030, it's a sort of reference document in addition to a lot of other framework and documents that highlights the need to protect or support the protection of cultural heritage and cultural sites and institutions. Well, starting from this declaration, from this framework, in 2016, the European Commission published the action plan related to the Sendai framework, covering the period that you can see, so up to the 2030, in order to work in the direction of a more systematic disaster risk-informed approach in European policy making. Well, how can we define a risk? Well, according to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, risk is the probability of an outcome having a negative effect on people, systems, or assets. So in my opinion, well, in addition to the several threats that affect built heritage, so impact of climate change, air pollution, flood and landslides, hurricanes, earthquake and fire, also armed conflicts and terrorism. In my opinion, also the lack of maintenance or lack of knowledge and the state of abandonment are a kind of damage that we have to consider working in the direction of heritage safeguarding. So in this framework, recommendation under the Sendai framework highlights 4 priorities. The one is understanding disaster risk by disseminating awareness. The second one is related to the documentation. So how documentation can be a way, a strategies for preservation. And in this framework, priority 2 mention also IT tools, such as the digitization of archival records and on-site laser scanning in order to ensure easy access to required information and stakeholder engagement. This is something I would like to highlight because it's part of my presentation, how to connect heritage at risk together with the need for documentation, also by using current technological development. The third priority is related to, of course, the investment in disaster risk reduction for resilience, also enhancing education. And the fourth one is related to the drafting of European standards. So also the need of protocols and standards is something that we work on very, very often in our project at European level. Well, how to define resilience? Well, in my opinion, resilience is quite an overused word sometimes, but it's very useful to understand how we can manage possible actions in order to resist, in order to react to emergency conditions. So resilience is the ability of a system, community, or society exposed to others to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt to, transfer, and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and efficient manner. This is a very strong definition that, well, once again, it's really useful to understand how to manage this condition of risk. But once again, there are several kinds of non-emergency conditions that we have to consider in addition to the one listed before. So abandonment, degradation and lack of maintenance. And let's say also the lack in society engagement or people engagement. So one of the topic of my research is related to the small historical centers or cultural landscape affected by different forms of abandonment. So we know that at national level, especially in this period, and we can find the bridge with the word resilience to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan that now is on the top of the actions at national but also at European level. That very often the small historical city center are, let's say, are affected by a lack of action to enhance local identity or to encourage repopulation. So after the seismic events of 2012 in Emilia, but also in the center of Italy, this kind of emergency have become more and more crucial. In addition to the Agenda 2030, here you can see just the goal 11 that is related to how to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, durable, and sustainable. The already mentioned National Recovery and Resilience Plan mentioned under the section related to tourism and to culture the need to improve culture and tourist accessibility through digital investments and investments to remove physical but also knowledge barrier to heritage. Regenerating small historical centers to promoting participation in culture, the enhancement of sustainable tourism and the preservation and enhancement of historical gardens and, let's say, landscape, and improving, of course, seismic safety for the conservation of places of culture. These kind of investments under the umbrella of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan include the digital strategy and platforms for cultural heritage and regeneration of small cultural sites. So once again, the digital need, the digital way to document and to preserve is mentioned also in this document. So as a first very, very short example of documentation and analysis in order to enhance conservation and valorization of small historical city centers, I would like to share the experience of this small historical center that is Stellata. In Italy, near Ferrara, in the northeast of the province of Ferrara. And in my opinion, this kind of small historic center is a great, a peculiar example of human interaction with natural environment that created over time a sort of distinctive landscape, linking nature and culture, people and places, tangible and intangible elements. So this small village was the focus of studies and research aimed at documenting for knowledge and for conservation, defining some strategies with a kind of different approach, so not focusing on historical buildings, but opening up strategies extended to the urban fabric and landscape. Here you can see a publication collecting also all the landscape maps, historical maps that was the basis to perform this research. Here you can see this aerial view of the historic center of Stellata, which develops, maybe you can see here in the picture, develops according to the linear layout imposed by the Po River. So the embankment traced the rules for the settlement of this small historical city center. So this small urban historical village is really full of buildings of historical and architectural interest, but well, very often happen that just some monumental landscape, in this case a fortress called Rocca Possente, are the one where economic resources are used for preservation, forgetting all the other historical buildings. So in this case, my study was focused on this. In addition to the preservation, of course, of this monumental landmark, it's really crucial for this kind of cultural landscape, let's say, to work in the direction of the analysis and the protection of all the urban settlement. Here you can see some pictures just to show you this typical small architecture along the river, and on the right side, of course, the Rocca, the fortress. And here you can see a flyover the Stellata villages just after the 2012 earthquake, where all the damages were mapped, of course, and when some restoration projects on the fortress at first started, but now other interventions are ongoing also on the small scale historical architecture. Here you can see some of the historical maps I mentioned before, and you can see once again the idea to work on the small scale architecture in order to preserve something that it's let's say frozen in time because of loss, because of abandonment, because of a sort of lack of interest in investing in the preservation of other historical architectures. So starting with the analysis on a territorial scale, retracing all the historical cartography, the original feature of the historic center have been highlighted in order to work in the direction to propose some conservation strategies considering all the urban fabric in the whole. I started the work with the proposal for the restoration of a sort of symbol of abandonment. It's a small church called San Francesco, but starting from this emergency condition, because this small church was at risk of loss, I extended to a broad scale the analysis. So in this case, you can see how the work on the analysis of the river and on the landscape was crucial in order to work in the direction of some preservation strategies, also working thanks to period photos in order to understand all the recent changes to the historic fabric, but also to know from the people, from the local people, the tradition and all the intangible cultural heritage to be preserved. And here you can see the maps of the analysis that it was a both digital and analog analysis, because I performed some digital studies in order to work in the direction to highlight the peculiarity of this historical center, concentrating on the urban fabric and mostly on the relationship among the historical urban fabric and the river. So in order to retrace this relationship, that it's of course the distinctive element of this historical city center, in order to create some connection also by very simple intervention, but highlighting this kind of need for this kind of historical settlements. The second example is quite similar because we are in the province of Ferrara once again. Once again, as you can see, we are near a river. In this case, this historical center is that is called Mesola. Is famous because of the castle. So once again, this emergency landmark was the most famous landmark of Mesola. But once again, also this small historic center is full of small scale architecture, very, very interesting. In this case, the municipality called the university to ask for a very specific study in order to understand how to preserve the historical surfaces. Here you can see some of the main issues affecting this small scale architecture. So working in the direction of tracing some interventions, some methodological guide in order to work on the facades of historic buildings. But the work to trace these guidelines of preservation was the opportunity to work on a broader scale, once again, proposing to the municipality to retrace the history of the main feature of Mesola, in order to work more focusing on operational procedure respecting the unicity of this small historical city center. The work was concluded and was included as a procedure to the municipality building regulation in order to address restoration and recovery intervention on the historical buildings. Just to conclude the example of Mesola, here you can see the digital survey that we performed in Mesola. So we decided to add this knowledge level in order to work in the direction of, yes, analyzing the territory up to the smallest scale of architecture, but working also with the digitization of the main urban areas. This kind of digitization was useful to have additional information and to work in order to represent and to understand the main feature of this urban fabric, also using this digital data to work in the direction of, as a support to analyze the surface specification that you can see in this slide. Once again, we work also in analog procedure in order to be very useful for the municipality by delivering also documents that you can see in this slide, putting together the historical knowledge, the work done on the broad analysis, and of course, by suggesting some specific intervention in order to preserve this great cultural heritage. Well, how to put together heritage at risk and digitization and digital innovation? The example of Mesola is just a small example of how can be useful to document with additional level of knowledge, also exploiting these digitization devices. And this example that you can see here is a very, very recent exhibition, a digital exhibition that the European Portal Europeana organized just after the fire at Notre Dame in order to highlight the awareness of people on cultural heritage at risk. Also considering the role that digital technologies can play in the preservation and restoration. So the bridge is very close. So once again, from the European Commission, here you can see a statement from the Declaration, the Cooperation on Advancing Digitization of Cultural Heritage, signed in 2018. Where European Commission put very, very clearly let's say the light on the digital revolution, saying that the digital revolution is leading to new and innovative forms of artistic creation, making culture and heritage more accessible. So the topic of use of innovative technologies for accessibility is maybe the most relevant one, in addition to preservation, because also in the previous speech, the idea to put people at the center of the process, so to put community and to find new way to engage society and to make people participating in the cultural dimension. Well, it's something that digital technologies can help to do. Also, let's say, in my opinion, digitization can be very powerful if respecting the unicity of cultural heritage, but it's also a mean to put people to physically enjoy the cultural heritage. But of course, the accessibility and new way of enjoying cultural contents, well, it's something that is really topical nowadays, and we need to find new way to process and to share data by digitization. The COVID-19 pandemic emergency changed something in this direction because, of course, a lot of heritage institutions realized the importance to be able to share data also according to this kind of digitization. So new meanings to technologies for virtual tourism, accessibility, or just to share knowledge about heritage sites at risk or remote accessibility in order to foster on-site accessibility. So the pandemic crisis add an additional level to the debate related to the impact of mass tourism. Also, let's say, highlighting the need to diversify tourist flow by moving from large attractors to unknown or different cultural contexts. So it's a kind of emergency scenario where new economic needs in heritage enhancement and conservation and new requirements from digital technologies are something that it's moving really fast. And again, the European Commission, of course, highlighted very much the idea to put this digital knowledge to preserve damaged or destroyed, potential damaged or destroyed cultural heritage in order to use the digitization for documentation, but also to serve in order to highlight all the places that cannot be physically reached or accessed, and of course minor and unknown heritage sites. Again, in this declaration about cooperation of advancing digitization, the idea to put digitization at the center in order to protect heritage at risk, of course, was highlighted in order to put together these two emergencies, so natural disasters, and the idea to the urgent need to make the most of digital technologies to record, document, and to preserve heritage. And in this direction, of course, emergency technologies were really highlighted, mentioning 3D digitization, but also artificial intelligence and other tools and devices in order to go in the direction of serve heritage with this kind of application. The declaration on the cooperation work on three main pillars, just to mention the idea to create a pan-European initiative for 3D digitization of cultural heritage, artifacts, monuments, and sites, and the idea to reuse digitize cultural resources, and of course foster the partnership between cultural and tourism institution, ministers, and organization. This is the website of the declaration. Just to mention that in addition to publish this declaration on cooperation on digitization, some reference projects were highlighted. One of these projects related to digitization of heritage is the Inception project. You can see here in the list. Of course, I will not present Inception in order to shorten the presentation, just to say that Inception is a project that we coordinated as Department of Architecture of the University of Ferrara. It was related to the inclusive cultural heritage through 3D semantic modeling, so working in the direction of this call launched by the European Commission to find cost-effective technologies for advanced digitization and modeling, enhancing the understanding of cultural heritage. The project was really successful. It was completed in 2019, and it resulted in this innovative startup company that it's called Inception, incubated as a spin-off of the University of Ferrara, in order to exploit the main outcomes from the project, the main outcomes that can be summarized in a protocol for the heritage digitization and in an open web platform in order to collect digital models with other information connected to the geometries. So an additional challenge launched by the European Commission is related to the idea to work in the direction of an European competence center for the preservation and conservation of monuments and sites. Here you can see the call, again, under the Horizon 2020 framework program. This call highlighted the increasing of disasters hitting heritage and the digital technology as a mean to preserve knowledge and to document heritage at risk. So we applied for this call with a proposal under this action in order to set up a competence center aiming at the preservation and conservation of European cultural heritage using new state-of-the-art ICT technologies. So the proposal was funded. The project is now ongoing. As you can see, well, the main aim, of course, is to create the architecture of this competence center that we hope to establish at the end of at the conclusion of the 3 years project, implementing a knowledge base for IT-based heritage preservation, so exploiting and using all the frontier technologies for digitization. The consortium is very large. We are 19 partners. Inception is the scientific coordinator together with other 2 co-coordinators. And well, just to conclude, the conceptual map of the main bodies at the center of the idea of this competence center, and you can see that in addition to the European level of the organizational board of the competence center, the idea is to work with the operational structure up to the national network at national level in order to be able to involve institutions, public bodies, professionals, short, medium enterprises, policymakers, in order to create a process involving the most large number of institutions to work in this direction. The objectives are related to the creation of this competence center, also thanks to a platform to support the collaboration among different institutions of heritage, increasing and enhancing the digitization of cultural heritage, supporting conservation. In addition to this kind of activity at European level, additional activities in the direction of documentation are under progress within the National Scientific Committee of the ICOMOS, Italian National Committee. Of course, I'm a member of the Heritage Documentation Committee, and we are working in addition to other topics to the idea of make knowledge and technologies together by using these kind of technologies, also thanks to protocols to guide this kind of digitization. The work of the European Commission didn't stop there with the initiative I mentioned. It's a very crucial moment now for the initiatives. Just to mention the latest one, the involvement of Inception in the expert group of digital cultural heritage and Europeana, with this kind of report on 3D contents to be put in the Europeana portal, and the launch of the Commission expert group of the Common European Data Space for Cultural Heritage as a forum for cooperation on digitization, conservation and preservation of cultural heritage between European Commission, Member States and UNESCO. The most recent document is the one performed under the name of Study on Quality in 3D Digitization of Tangible Cultural Heritage. So, well, the direction is very clear, and the commitment of the European Commission in this way is very, very strong. I promise I'm going to conclude just to mention the latest experience related to the heritage at risk and latest initiatives. So by putting together this expertise and these projects mentioned above, we applied in 2019 we submitted a project to the Emilia-Romagna region called After the Damages, in order to put together all this experience in the direction of research management, governance, and process optimization, also in higher education, capitalizing also the experience in the post-disaster scenarios after the Emilia-Romagna earthquake in 2012. So this proposal, the summer school, was financed and was set up at the beginning as a summer school, so as a higher education program, according to a really interdisciplinary approach. Here you can see just the main centers involved in this project at the level of the, of course, Department of Architecture in Ferrara, but also together with other universities of Emilia-Romagna, with the Regional Agency for Reconstruction and other institutions. opening up to the international level, sorry, by involving different international institutions that you can see listed. So this idea was really great because we focused on a lot of topics related to emergency condition and to a way to understand risk and to manage decision making and risk management, resilience, including socio-economic aspect. So the summer school became an international academy. Here you can see some of the partners involved. And just concluding, I would like to show you some pictures of some of the focuses that participants to the summer school were able to to create, working together in the different edition of the summer school, working in the direction of create synergies among young professional or professional involved for several times and periods in emergency condition, since the summer school is open to professionals, to young researchers, to senior researchers, and it's open to people from all over the world. So one of the main success of the summer school was to create these teams and these groups working on different kind of emergencies and on different kind of topics related to emergency condition. By exchanging best practices and exchanging, yes, some experiences from different landscapes and from different countries in order to focus on the main possible main activities in order to create a new way to manage emergency, a new way to manage well the knowledge that it's possible to collect also thanks to new opportunities by digital means, but working in the direction of create, yes, possible strategies in this direction. The third edition is almost ongoing. The call for application is open, and as usual, we have 60 positions available in order to collect people with free of charge admission, thanks to the fund by the Emilia-Romagna region, creating this, enlarging this community and creating synergies among people and places. And thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. And I was really hoping you were advertising a bit the next call. Can you stop sharing maybe the screen, Federico? Okay, perfect. Okay. I was really hoping you were advertising a bit the new call because well, I can speak for has a direct witness of that activity because I was part of the first edition, and I would really encourage especially archaeologists that not often are really integrated into this sort of activities, working tightly with architects and engineers or so. I would say in the one of the worst events that could possibly hit our region. So the experience gathered through the earthquake in Ferrara, you were really able to develop an activity, a structure to teach and spread your experience, which was extremely positive in terms of reactivating all the infrastructure, the networks, both on a political level, administrative level, and local communities. So I really encourage also archaeologists in getting involved in this activity. So thank you again for presenting this overview on different projects. And if there are questions here, in chat now. Well, I have one question related to especially the definition of standards on a European level. So my question was, you mentioned that, of course, the partnership or at least the confrontation also with other organizations like ICOMOS is pretty constant, but how the definition of new standards relates to the, let's say, the suggested practices suggested by the conventions proposed to the ICOMOS. So there is a kind of exchange of points of view. The new center is going to develop other standards on its own. How, if you can just explain a bit this.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good question, because the approach to standards or to protocols, in my opinion, it's quite risky talking about cultural heritage, because we are, in my opinion, it's not easy to work with standards concepts when we talk about something that it's unique, and we need to, of course, to approach case by case according to documentation needs, protection needs, and conservation. The direction to find the standards that it's common both to ICOMOS activities, but also to this big European project that it's 4CH to find to set up this European competence center, go in the direction to set some flexible protocols guiding the procedure of knowledge on cultural heritage at each scale and of course for different needs. And very often the need to find standards in the digitization sphere is related to also to the management of the data sharing needs. And also the need to work in the most open format possible. So we have two levels of standards: how to go with some procedures that can be the starting points for experts in order to go in the right direction, maybe asking the right questions to monuments, because going in the direction of protocols or standards, it's at the cultural level means being able to ask the right question to monuments through the use of this kind of digitization tools. The other level is to be compliant with the accessibility of this digital data. So the work is also in that direction. So the mapping in the documents I presented quickly, this kind of documents by the European Commission are also aimed at list all open formats, open platforms. So how to increase the use of this digital data for expert people, for not experts. So how to make the accessibility really broad.
Okay, no, thank you very much. And I think, yes, in the upcoming years, there will be a big deal of discussion on this topic. So also digitalization is at the center of many debates, especially concerning open access, open accessibility of data and so on. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic, and also related to cultural landscapes as part of the broader cultural heritage. I think the application of some of these standards more systematically, I would say, will really help meeting some of the needs which are increasingly appearing in these last years due to all sorts of threats you mentioned at the very beginning. So if there are no other questions, I would thank thank you very much, Federica, for your presentation. And we can move forward to our last speaker of today, Dr. Bushinaki, who's expert advisor to UNESCO, but has an incredible career within different organizations in the cultural heritage field. He's going to present specifically a case study on from Algeria, the Tassili National Park. So, Dr. Bushinaki, if you want to share your screen, you should be able to do it. Okay, yes. Can you hear us? Because we cannot hear
Yes.
you. Okay, perfect.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, very well.
Okay. Can you see some slides that I will
Yes.
present? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, let me say good afternoon to everybody, and to say also a big thank to Dr. Niccolò for the invitation to participate to this very, very interesting seminar. I am really sorry because I had another obligation. I couldn't join immediately. I was in Qatar for an urgent mission, and that's why I am a bit late, and I am, I think, the last speaker in this seminar today. My topic is about, of course, the question raised by Dr. Niccolò about cultural landscapes and what are the the challenges that we are faced when we speak about cultural landscapes. And I wanted to introduce very simply a personal experience about a very, very important and very large cultural landscape in Algeria. I am from Algeria, and I was in charge of cultural heritage for many years there before joining UNESCO and then ICCROM. But because time was very short for me, I don't know if it is possible for me to speak French, which is my first language, rather than English. Is it possible, Dr. Niccolò, that I can...
Yes, I would say there's no... do you understand English? Okay, perfect. No,
I think the Italian colleagues are all speaking French. Anche io posso parlare italiano, ma non posso fare un discorso.
No, don't worry, don't worry. I think it will be easier to be understood in French rather than Italian.
So let me for the sake of diversity, to speak French. So
okay.
The topic is the following. You know, I'm going. Je vais changer. Je vais parler en français. Je vais parler d'un parc national sur lequel nous avons beaucoup travaillé dans les années 70, qui s'appelle le Parc national du Tassili. Et déjà à cette époque, je parle de 1969-1970, on a considéré que ce parc était un musée à ciel ouvert. Et c'est un peu le thème de ce que je vais présenter. Nous le savons tous aussi, autour de cette table, tous les experts savent combien l'UNESCO a travaillé dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre de la Convention de 1972 à discuter et à travailler sur les différents éléments qui peuvent constituer le patrimoine mondial. Et on a introduit aussi, au sein des différents groupes de sujets pouvant être porteurs d'une valeur universelle exceptionnelle, aussi les parcs nationaux et les parcs qui ont à la fois un caractère naturel et un caractère culturel. Alors, en Algérie, on a commencé d'abord par travailler sur le plan juridique à la présentation d'un texte qui a été publié au journal officiel algérien en 1968. Et à l'époque, comme il n'y avait pas encore de parlement, le pays a eu son indépendance après une longue période d'administration française qui a duré 130 ans, et la législation qui a servi à protéger à la fois le patrimoine culturel, mais aussi les éléments de la nature, un certain nombre de forêts, un certain nombre de parcs, étaient déjà listés dans ce qu'on appelait la liste nationale des monuments et sites. Et cette ordonnance a été le texte juridique de base qui a fonctionné jusqu'en 1998. C'est-à-dire depuis 1970 jusqu'à 1998, toute la partie juridique qui traitait de la préservation des sites, de leur gestion, était fondée sur cette ordonnance qui a été d'ailleurs élaboré avec l'aide de plusieurs experts, à la fois français, mais aussi de l'UNESCO, qui avaient participé à sa rédaction. Et c'est dans ce cadre d'une approche qui n'était plus simplement une approche des monuments, des sites, des villes historiques. C'était une approche pour une architecture qui soit non pas une architecture isolée, mais une architecture d'ensemble. Et un des premiers éléments d'inscription sur la liste nationale a été la célèbre vallée du Mzab. Le Mzab se trouve, alors vous avez une carte devant vous, et le Mzab se trouve à peu près au centre nord de l'Algérie, avec ce que l'on appelle la pentapole, c'est-à-dire un ensemble de 5 villes qui ont une architecture tout à fait caractéristique. Je n'ai pas le temps, évidemment, d'entrer dans le détail, mais je voulais juste signaler que parmi les architectes modernes qui se sont intéressés à la pentapole du Mzab, c'était Le Corbusier, et Le Corbusier a écrit, mais aussi réalisé certaines de ses œuvres architecturales en s'inspirant de la pentapole du Mzab. Donc voilà un premier ensemble qui est à la fois un ensemble qui comporte des maisons, des ensembles entourés de murs avec des portes d'entrée qui se fermaient le soir pour la communauté, mais aussi liés à ce qu'on appelle la palmeraie, qui était associée à la vie culturelle, mais aussi à la vie économique de la pentapole du Mzab. Donc ça a été notre première expérience de création d'un ensemble qui associe à la fois les valeurs culturelles et les valeurs naturelles. Le deuxième ensemble, alors, c'est un ensemble qui remonte à la préhistoire. Nous avons évidemment un territoire qui fait 2 200 000 kilomètres carrés, c'est-à-dire un énorme territoire qui comprend d'une part une zone nord littorale de climat méditerranéen, un peu comme ce que l'on trouve en Sicile ou en Sardaigne, et puis nous avons un territoire saharien qui va jusque vers les pays du Sud, comme le Mali, le Niger, le Tchad et la Libye. Et ce territoire a été parcouru par de nombreuses missions, surtout au début du XXe siècle, quand il y a eu des engins mécaniques qui ont pu entrer à travers les dunes, à travers les montagnes. Et parmi ces sites qui ont été rattachés à ce concept d'espace culturel, de parc naturel et culturel, c'est le Tassili. Le Tassili Nadjer, qui est un immense plateau qui se situe, comme je viens de le dire, aux confins de la Libye, du Niger, du Mali, et qui couvre une superficie de plus de 80 000 km², avec une densité exceptionnelle de peintures, de gravures et de nombreux vestiges, bien sûr, qui appartiennent à l'époque préhistorique. Alors, la découverte de ce site s'est faite aux alentours des années 1930, donc le siècle dernier, par un chercheur français qui est célèbre parce qu'il a écrit beaucoup sur le Tassili, qui s'appelle Henri Lotte. Henri Lotte est devenu très ami avec les Touaregs, les habitants du Sud, vous savez, les hommes en bleu, et ce sont les hommes en bleu qui se cachent le visage et non pas les femmes dans le Sud, dans le Hogar. Et il était parti d'abord comme entomologiste, c'est-à-dire le gouvernement français l'avait envoyé pour étudier les insectes, les animaux de petite taille dans le désert, pour mieux connaître leur adaptation au climat. Et en réalité, il s'est passionné pour ces sites montagneux qui sont, comme nous le disons tous, une sorte de musée à ciel ouvert avec des formes géologiques très intéressantes et avec des stations où, à l'époque préhistorique, donc nous parlons de entre 10 000 10 000 ans avant l'ère chrétienne jusqu'au début de l'ère chrétienne, mais surtout entre 10 000 et 4 000, 5 000 avant, cette région était parcourue par des troupeaux, par des chasseurs qui ont laissé sur les rochers des traces de leur passage et qui ont reproduit toute une série d'animaux qu'ils avaient vus, avec lesquels ils vivaient. Donc on a des restes de gravures qui montrent gazelles, éléphants, crocodiles. Pourquoi? Parce que la période était une période humide. C'était la glaciation de Worms, et cette période humide s'était déplacée dans la partie qui est aujourd'hui un vrai désert, mais qui a laissé des traces. Donc nous avons encore des restes de végétation avec des arbres multiséculaires et avec des nappes d'eau qui existent encore, et c'est qui permet à la vie de continuer dans cette zone. Alors ça, c'est pour la partie, disons rapidement, de description de ce qu'on appelle le parc du Tassili. Et cette région, nous l'avions considérée, notre petite administration de l'époque, donc des années 70 du siècle dernier, a considéré qu'on devait faire quelque chose pour mieux conserver, pour mieux protéger, parce qu'il y avait évidemment beaucoup de touristes qui descendaient de façon un peu inorganisée, qui regardaient les peintures et les gravures rupestres, comme celle que je vous montre ici, et qui prenaient des éponges, qui mouillaient les parois pour prendre de belles diapositives. Alors vous imaginez qu'au bout de 100 passages, il n'y avait plus de peinture, parce que la peinture était érodée et diluée au fur et à mesure de cette aspersion d'eau sur les gravures. Alors, nous avons pensé qu'il fallait protéger. Alors, pour protéger, il fallait élaborer un texte. Nous étions à l'époque, bien sûr, déjà sensibilisés à la Charte de Venise de 1964, et nous avons donc invité un des rédacteurs de la charte, c'est le professeur Raymond Lemaire. Notre collègue Nicolo, qui est en Belgique, entend certainement parler du professeur Raymond Lemaire, qui a été un des grands professeurs à Louvain, un des rédacteurs avec le professeur Gazzola de la Charte de Venise, et j'ai eu la chance donc de travailler directement avec le professeur Lemaire pour voir de quelle manière on pouvait protéger un parc national. Cette opération nous a permis d'aller sur le terrain, de voir de quelle manière on pouvait faire une délimitation, parce que là, nous sommes dans une zone, comme je viens de le montrer dans la photo, sur des kilomètres et des kilomètres de montagnes, de plateaux. Et donc, j'ai organisé en 1978 un séminaire international sur le plateau du Tassili, où nous avons invité les spécialistes de Val Camonica, les spécialistes de Lascaux, le spécialiste de Altamira. On a fait venir aussi des experts d'Australie, d'Amérique du Nord. Et ce séminaire a été très important, et Henri Lotte était avec nous. Henri Lotte, qui, je le rappelle, est né en 1903, donc il était déjà relativement âgé, comme étant l'un des grands arpenteurs du Sahara, et c'est lui qui a été le scientifique qui a parlé aux autres scientifiques qui étaient présents pour dire l'importance du désert, l'importance de ce qu'il a relevé au cours de différentes missions. Et pour ceux qui peuvent venir à Paris, dans ce qu'on appelait le musée de l'homme, il y avait les représentations de ces panneaux de gravures préhistoriques au musée de l'homme à Paris. Il a fait donc des relevés de très grande qualité et on peut considérer Henri Lott aujourd'hui comme étant l'un des plus grands explorateurs du Sahara au XXe siècle, à côté de Konrad Kilian et de Théodore Monod. À l'issue donc du séminaire de 1978, qui était un séminaire placé sous l'égide de l'UNESCO, on a commencé à élaborer un inventaire de tous les travaux. Je suis content d'avoir écouté le professeur Federica Maietti qui parle de la digitalisation du patrimoine. Évidemment, à cette époque, il n'y avait pas encore cette technologie qui aujourd'hui est très répandue et qui nous permet de faire des relevés rapidement et avec une qualité et une précision extraordinaire. Mais il y a eu donc des relevés photographiques et graphiques avec des peintres qui ont accompagné Henri Lott sur le terrain. Ensuite, je l'ai invité, j'étais à l'époque donc directeur du patrimoine en Algérie, je l'ai invité à rester plusieurs mois en Algérie et de travailler avec les jeunes préhistoriens algériens pour passer l'information sur la documentation, sur les relevés, sur les inventaires. Voilà comment petit à petit ce projet du Tassili est devenu un des projets majeurs pour la préservation d'une densité exceptionnelle de peintures et de gravures qui montre comment les populations qui ont vécu dans le Tassili ont laissé toutes les traces matérielles de leur vie. Et ensuite, il y a eu des archéologues qui ont commencé à fouiller dans les abris sous roche, et il y a eu les grandes missions qui étaient dirigées par celui qui a été un aussi de mes professeurs de thèse, le professeur Gabriel Camps, qui est reconnu jusqu'à aujourd'hui comme étant l'un des plus grands préhistoriens de l'Afrique du Nord, du Maghreb. Alors, ce paysage est un paysage de grand intérêt géologique. Il abrite à peu près 15 000 dessins et gravures et il permet d'avoir aussi une vision sur les formations géologiques avec ce qu'on appelle des forêts de rochers. C'était des forêts essentiellement de grès érodés qui sont entourées, comme vous le voyez sur la photo ici, de dunes de sable majestueuses, énormes. Et là, nous trouvons bien sûr toutes les phases d'occupation humaine dans un environnement qui n'est pas toujours très facile. D'ailleurs, on a souvent des touristes qui pensent qu'ils peuvent se diriger tout seuls. On a eu une frayeur pendant la période où Mme Thatcher était à la tête du gouvernement britannique. Son fils est venu avec une Land Rover, mais il n'a pas voulu prendre de guide et il s'est perdu. Et heureusement, nous avons mis tous les moyens pour le retrouver, sinon il serait mort, vous voyez, au milieu de ce paysage, parce qu'une fois que vous êtes là, malgré la boussole, vous êtes quand même perdu et il faut avoir la présence d'un guide. Donc, on a donc considéré que cet espace devait être géré. Alors, comment faire? J'ai donc commencé à recruter des Touaregs, c'est des gens des locaux, et on leur a fait une formation pour leur expliquer d'abord l'importance du patrimoine dans lequel ils vivaient. Alors, beaucoup se rendaient compte qu'il y avait des peintures, des gravures, ils ne les touchaient pas d'ailleurs, mais ils ne réagissaient pas face aux gens qui venaient, qui grattaient, qui prenaient des photos en mouillant les peintures. Et donc, on a fait une formation qui a permis de faire prendre, c'est vraiment une prise de conscience sur l'importance de la préservation de façon à avoir une gestion durable du Tassili. Et vers la fin de cette période de formation, nous avons constitué des équipes qui obligatoirement devaient obéir au tour opérateur et on ne laissait plus aucun groupe se déplacer dans les sites qui sont très connus, ils ont des noms très célèbres, vous pouvez regarder ensuite sur sur Internet Tassili avec Djabaren, avec le plateau de Tamrit, etc. Il y a toute une série de sites qui sont connus, mais on a obligé les tour opérateurs à avoir avec eux à chaque fois un guide local qui permettait à la fois de guider les gens, éviter de se perdre, mais aussi empêcher qu'ils ne se rapprochent. Et on a établi à la base des secteurs qui ont été reconnus comme étant recouverts de peinture, on a fait des petits murets en pierre pour empêcher que les visiteurs n'aillent directement sur la paroi et pour essayer de regarder la fraîcheur de ces peintures qui datent de plusieurs milliers d'années et que nous souhaitons préserver. Et donc là, nous sommes passés à une deuxième phase, c'est de faire en sorte que le Tassili soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Et là, nous avons travaillé, bien sûr, avec l'UNESCO, et c'était les premières années de la mise en œuvre de la convention de l'UNESCO. Vous savez, la convention a été adoptée en novembre 1972, mais elle n'a commencé à être mise en application et à avoir des sites qui ont commencé à être inscrits, puis ensuite le suivi de ces sites à partir de 1978. Et donc, c'est à cette époque-là, quand les premiers comités du patrimoine mondial ont commencé à se réunir, que nous avons préparé un dossier montrant l'importance du Tassili, montrant que nous avons inscrit un programme de gestion de ce Tassili. Nous avons implanté une unité au Tassili avec un premier directeur qui n'était d'ailleurs pas un préhistorien, mais qui était un expert en cinéma. Mais il était passionné par le Sud et donc il a été celui qui a aménagé les premiers locaux et qui a reçu les premiers experts, notamment les experts à l'époque de République qu'on appelait Tchécoslovaquie, qui s'intéressaient à la partie naturelle, et plus particulièrement aux vestiges, aux arbres reliques qui existent dans le Tassili et qui ont essayé de répliquer sur place la possibilité de replanter les arbres que l'on trouve au Tassili. Bien sûr, c'est un programme qui est encore en cours, mais c'est le dossier que nous avons présenté à l'UNESCO avec la mission de conservation, la mission de mise en valeur, l'établissement dirigé par un directeur et un conseil d'orientation qui regroupait les représentants des différents ministères et aussi des élus locaux, des Touaregs sur place. Ce centre a été doté d'un budget de fonctionnement et bien sûr avec une réunion régulière de son centre d'orientation. Ensuite, il y a eu des programmes de recherche qui ont été développés avec l'Université d'Alger, mais aussi en liaison avec des institutions étrangères. Et on a beaucoup travaillé à un moment avec les conservateurs du site de Lascaux, puisqu'il fallait avoir des avis techniques sur la conservation de ces peintures et de ces gravures. Et on a travaillé aussi avec le premier directeur de l'ICROM, le docteur Plenderleit, et avec un grand restaurateur, le professeur Torraca, malheureusement qui ne sont plus de ce monde. Et nous avons reçu un restaurateur italien, le docteur Maranzi, qui est venu et qui a fait des essais de restauration de ces peintures. Donc là, vous voyez ces espèces de petits carrés. C'était des essais pour voir comment consolider ces peintures, parce qu'il y a bien sûr des éléments naturels, le vent, de temps en temps des pluies, parce que malheureusement, nous sommes aussi dans une période de changement climatique, de temps en temps de pluie, et donc trouver le moyen de préserver ces vestiges. Ensuite, il fallait, dans le dossier, présenter ce qu'était l'activité touristique que nous avons essayé de définir comme une activité qui bénéficie aux populations locales. C'est-à-dire, on n'a pas fait construire un hôtel en dur, mais on a autorisé les responsables du tourisme à construire des tentes où les visiteurs d'ailleurs étaient très contents de se trouver, de manière à ne pas endommager l'environnement de ces sites. Alors, il y a eu donc toute une série d'actions qui ont permis au Comité du patrimoine mondial d'inscrire en 1982 le site du Tassili et c'était un des premiers grands sites de plusieurs de milliers de kilomètres carrés. Le parc lui-même fait environ 150 000 kilomètres carrés, mais nous avons préservé la partie la plus riche qui fait à peu près 80 000 kilomètres carrés de superficie. Et bien entendu, cette inscription a développé un tourisme, notamment avec des institutions touristiques italiennes qui partaient directement de Milan. Il y avait des vols directs qui partaient de Milan vers le Tassili. Il y a une petite agglomération, on ne peut pas dire une grande ville, une petite ville qui s'appelle Gianet et qui a un aéroport et qui recevait donc des avions directement depuis l'Italie vers le Tassili. Ensuite, le PNUD, le Programme des Nations Unies pour le développement, s'est intéressé à ce projet et il y a eu le développement d'une proposition qui s'appelle « Conservation de la biodiversité d'intérêt mondial dans les parcs culturels du Tassili et de l'Aagar ». L'Aagar, c'est encore une autre région contiguë au Tassili, mais qui est plus sur la partie centrale de la zone sud du pays. C'est un projet qui a été lancé avec le PNUD et qui a permis d'obtenir un financement avec le Fonds mondial pour l'environnement dans la période qui a commencé en 2012 et qui normalement se termine actuellement en 2022. Là aussi, il y a eu un directeur qui a été nommé pour le suivi de ce projet, mais alors là, nous avons un archéologue qui a travaillé dans le désert, qui a travaillé dans le sud, qui s'appelle M. Salah Amokran, et c'est lui qui, jusqu'à aujourd'hui, continue à suivre la mise en place d'un réseau national de parcs culturels qui sont en place selon la nouvelle législation algérienne. Donc, j'ai dit tout à l'heure que la première législation, c'était une ordonnance qui a été publiée en 1968, et ce n'est que pratiquement 30 ans plus tard, en 1998, une fois que le pays a eu un parlement, une assemblée nationale, et qu'il y a eu une loi qu'on appelle la loi de 1998 concernant la protection du patrimoine culturel. Je voulais vous citer que M. Francesco Bandarin est allé lui aussi quand on a travaillé ensemble à l'UNESCO, il a travaillé beaucoup sur les paysages culturels et il a écrit dans les cahiers du patrimoine mondial concernant les paysages culturels en 2011, je le cite, « Les paysages culturels du patrimoine mondial, catégorie adoptée par le Comité du patrimoine mondial en 1992, ont constitué en un sens le prélude aux considérations de la stratégie globale de 1994 pour une liste du patrimoine mondial équilibrée et représentative et aux considérations majeures qui ont amené le groupe d'experts et le Comité du patrimoine mondial à rapprocher la nature de la culture dans la mise en œuvre de la Convention du patrimoine mondial. Les questions relatives au patrimoine mixte, culturel et naturel et les liens intrinsèques entre les communautés et leur milieu naturel ont été discutés dès l'avènement de la Convention du patrimoine mondial et son adoption en 1992. Donc, vous voyez, au plus haut niveau de l'UNESCO, l'intérêt sur les parcs nationaux, l'intérêt sur les parcs à caractère culturel et naturel ont été débattus et le grand pas en avant a été franchi en 1992 car ça a été une année cruciale pour ce domaine qui a constitué d'ailleurs, qui s'est concrétisé par le sommet de la Terre avec la conférence des Nations Unies sur l'environnement et le développement qui a eu lieu à Rio de Janeiro. Alors, on a là un exemple devant vous de ce qu'est aujourd'hui l'environnement culturel dans le Tassili. C'est une photo d'un collègue qu'il vient de m'envoyer et qui montre qu'il y a une végétation maintenant un peu plus accrue que celle que moi j'ai connue il y a 30 ans ou 35 ans. Il y a maintenant un peu plus d'humidité, un peu plus de pluie, et donc vous voyez les petits enclos et les petits habitats locaux qui s'installent, bien entendu, là où se trouve de l'eau. Alors, en conclusion, qu'est-ce qu'on peut dire? On peut dire que cette expérience, l'expérience que nous avons connue et que j'ai eu la chance, à laquelle j'ai eu la chance de participer dans les années 70 et jusqu'à maintenant, puisque j'ai continué à travailler avec mes collègues jusqu'à maintenant, est une expérience qui a une valeur très importante, d'abord sur le plan de la préservation de l'environnement. Nous parlons beaucoup aujourd'hui des changements climatiques, nous parlons des dommages et des désastres parfois qui peuvent arriver à cause du changement climatique. Les deux collègues qui m'ont précédé ont parlé de l'importance de l'action à mener dans la lutte contre les dérèglements, d'abord le dérèglement climatique, mais aussi contre les différentes menaces qui peuvent exister. Alors, il y a les menaces humaines. Nous sommes dans une zone qui est très, très fragile. Donc, on ne peut pas imaginer qu'il y ait ici un tourisme de masse. Donc, nous allons tout faire, nous continuons à l'UNESCO, bien sûr, mais aussi au niveau national, nous continuons à donner des conseils sur la nouvelle gestion d'un tourisme qui soit un tourisme durable. Et que ce soit pour le premier ensemble que j'ai cité au début, c'est-à-dire la pentapole du Mzab et sa palmeraie, ou pour le Tassili, nous ne pensons pas qu'il faille développer un tourisme qui soit le type de tourisme qui malheureusement d'ailleurs n'est pas bien vu. Vous savez quelles ont été les réactions aussi bien en Italie, à Venise, qu'en Espagne, à Barcelone. Le tourisme de masse ne peut pas être appliqué à ce genre d'environnement. Et donc, c'est un tourisme qui, il faut malheureusement le souligner, limité à des groupes réduits et à des groupes qui acceptent une vie qui ne soit pas la vie que l'on mène dans les restaurants ou dans les hôtels où on dépense beaucoup d'eau. Ici, l'eau est absolument précieuse et donc il faut travailler dans le cadre d'une gestion appropriée et très limitative et que moi j'ai vu beaucoup de touristes comme ça qui viennent et qui ne veulent pas dépenser trop par rapport à, par exemple, la douche quotidienne, l'utilisation de l'eau courante qui n'est pas toujours présente. C'est un objet aujourd'hui qui nous intéresse. Nous travaillons avec une experte du tourisme, Madame Gravari Barbas, qui est professeure à la Sorbonne, et avec laquelle nous essayons, pas seulement à ce moment-là pour l'Algérie, mais dans beaucoup d'autres régions, où nous avons des parcs culturels et naturels sur lesquels la gestion doit être une gestion beaucoup plus proche de la vie naturelle des populations pour que ces populations à la fois reçoivent et acceptent, et elles sont toujours très heureuses de recevoir, elles sont généralement très hospitalières, ouvrant leurs portes aux visiteurs. Dans le sud, les femmes sont très, très libres et donc elles reçoivent les visiteurs, elles leur montrent comment elles font le tissage. Il y a une musique traditionnelle dans le sud, dans cette partie du Tassili, qui est jouée par les femmes, et il y a un instrument de musique qu'on appelle l'imzad, qui a été reconnu d'ailleurs parmi les éléments représentatifs du patrimoine culturel immatériel dans le cadre de la Convention de 2002. Donc ça, c'est le premier élément. Le deuxième élément, c'est l'aspect scientifique. Nous avons été extrêmement intéressés par les différentes expériences qui ont été menées sur l'arbre qui s'appelle le tarout, qu'on appelle le cyprès du Tassili, qui a survécu pendant des centaines d'années. Certains arbres qui ont été analysés par la dendrochronologie montrent qu'ils étaient là depuis pratiquement un millénaire. Alors, comment on peut continuer à assurer la présence d'une végétation, la présence de l'eau dans cette région? Je crois qu'il y a là un travail sur le plan scientifique avec, comme l'a montré tout à l'heure Madame professeure Federica Maietti, avec les universités, c'est très important, et la coopération internationale. Dans ce domaine, nous bénéficions justement de ce réseau que l'UNESCO a institué, des sites du patrimoine mondial et des rapports qui existent de façon maintenant régulière, notamment au niveau de l'ICOMOS, sur la façon de respecter les populations, faire en sorte que ces populations bénéficient bien sûr de cet apport que le tourisme peut apporter, mais en même temps que ces parcs nationaux, parcs culturels et naturels puissent continuer à avoir une durabilité. Voilà, c'est le mot que je voulais utiliser, avoir une durabilité face à des situations qui malheureusement parfois nous dépassent. Il y a maintenant des vents qui n'existaient pas. Il y a parfois des grosses pluies. Vous avez entendu parler d'inondations dans le désert, alors que ça n'existait pas réellement de façon régulière. Mais maintenant, avec le changement climatique, il va falloir aussi adapter la gestion de ces parcs à la nouvelle situation du changement climatique. Voilà, je vous remercie pour votre attention. I'm really sorry that I couldn't have the time to draft my paper in English, but I hope I was trying to talk very clearly in French, and for those who are, having already a knowledge of Italian or Spanish, it's not difficult to understand my presentation in English. So thank you very much for your attention, and I am, of course, ready to reply to any of your questions.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is a really interesting example you presented, and actually it's striking to see how early this process of valorizing and protecting this sort of heritage was, compared to actually the limit, I would say, number of properties which are right now included in the list, which are like enlisted as mixed properties, so natural and cultural, as well as more recently proper cultural landscapes. So it really brings again together some topics that we already dealt with briefly also in our contribution today. And I wanted to ask, following some of these, some aspects of this fil rouge, so you mentioned that the local communities, the Tuareg, already at an early stage were involved as guides in the valorization, or at least in presentation of the site. I was wondering, nowadays, are they engaged also in other aspects? For instance, I don't know, the monitoring of the of a park, in other, let's say, aspects of the management of a site, or let's say are simply some beneficiaries of actions which are actually undertaken on other levels?
Yeah, no, your question is very important, because I think that this is also very common in many situation of deserts, whether in Saudi Arabia or in Egypt or in Libya, where we have this kind of very, very big desert. There was, in the recent years, a kind of limitation of nomadism because of the introduction of lorries, introduction of vehicles which are capable to to go through deserts and in a short period. Secondly,
sorry, can I just stop sharing so we can just see you? Okay, it's better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I think your question is very important because it's, first of all, it's raised the fact that the desert in many regions which are called deserts, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, etc. Nomadism has been reduced drastically, and education with stabilization in stable places where you have schools, you have now even high schools. So the population is not only a population living with the traditional way of weaving, having camels or other animals as a livestock, but now we have people from the community of Tuareg being part of the management of the site, and not only keepers, not only people who are accompanying tourists there. There was, of course, as in all the world, the last 2 years, there was a big drop in any tourism. It was completely stopped. And fortunately, these people were not relying only on the benefit from tourism, but also from the fact they become sedentaire. They become people living in the same place. And also the fact that water now with the the modern interventions in going into the soil for more than 30-40 meters, you can find water. This is very interesting to know that under the desert you have a very important, we call it la nappe albienne. It's a vast surface of water below the desert, and the local communities are organizing themselves in having a beginning of agriculture for their own benefit. And this was seen during the last 2 years when there was no plane, no tourist. It was totally stopped. These populations continue to grow up and to live without tourism. Now, the first, I think this year, maybe this month, maybe they were trying to reopen the airport of Janet to make sure that the continuation of the life is not only under the resources that they have inside, but also coming, having this tourism. They are absolutely bringing some resources. The second thing is that because of the level of education, particularly in the cities which are becoming quite important in the south, you have now these people are not obliged to go to the north to go to the doctor, because now they have the infrastructure for medicals. And we have seen also the relationship between this city of Janet, which is southeast of Algeria, with another site which was inscribed nearly at the same time by the Libyans, which is called the Tadrat Akakus. The expert of Italy knows very well, prehistorian from Italy knows very well this. It is a continuation of Tassili. unfortunately, during the time where we were presenting the sites, it was more presentation country by country. But today I would really propose, a cross reference country, between the two countries, because it's exactly the same environment, the same kind of paintings and gravings, that it's only because it's a border, and these borders, as you know, have been drawn up in the Berlin Conference in 1875. But normally this is a continuation, but we have fortunately very good relation. As I was once in the south, and there was unfortunately a plane from Libya which was hit by they didn't see a mountain, and I saw the generosity and the solidarity between the people of the two sides, because it's a walking distance. Walking, I mean, it's about 60, 70 kilometers in the desert, but you need a guide. So this is my reply, of course, is open today to a kind of new life of the community, but still it is important to have this opening to the rest of the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other questions? I think no, in the chat. Well, if there's no other question also concerning the other contribution, I would say we can close the day today. So thank you again very much for all the inspiring contribution. I think tomorrow we'll have a lot to discuss also at the roundtable, where we'll bring again some of the topics we've just mentioned briefly across these first 2 days. But I think it was really an interesting opportunity to just compare different experiences, different contexts also. And what strikes me personally is on one side, the differences, of course, cultural landscapes and landscapes in general are extremely specific to a certain context, but nonetheless, we can find across the different places some elements which are recurring. And I think on these elements, we really need to open a broader discussion, which is not limited to, on the one side, the archaeological research or the historical research and the management of cultural landscape, of cultural heritage, but really we need to bring together the two expertise in order to deal more completely, I would say, with some problematics which are common, I would say. So again, thank you very much to all of you, all the contributors, all the audience, and see you tomorrow at 10 with the roundtable, which will close the conference. So thank you again very much.